Yeah,
Okay, so I guess we should get started. Thank you, everyone. So Catherine, why don't you tell us what we're doing here today?
good morning, everybody. Sorry I was a little late. Had to go give blood. Anyway, I guess one of our meetings, a couple of meetings ago, it came up this kind of topic of when some of your cases aren't going as planned. Many times they don't go as planned, and we often talk about, meeting the clients where they are, or pivoting as needed, or being flexible. And then sometimes it's just more than that. Sometimes there are actually certain behaviors of the clients or the team, or sometimes team and clients, if it starts to kind of mirror that dynamic, that can be a little bit problematic. And we thought it'd be worthwhile to talk about the different scenarios. We made a list together, Teresa and I, of many, many scenarios, but I know everyone here will also have a lot to share on their own. So we're here to just guide a conversation and have everyone participate with their own thoughts and feedback, and then share their own scenarios if they want some feedback on it as well. And then we're going to try to get through our whole outline, but it's pretty extensive, so we may need to go to a part two, but we'll just see how it goes today. Okay.
Now, does anybody want to start? I mean, we thought of some things that happen, like clients aren't setting up meetings or they're disappearing. Clients no longer want to work with one of the neutrals. One client needs their own coach. Clients no longer want to meet. Clients want, when maybe they want to change counsel, don't speak for themselves. One person dominates the conversation. Nancy just said something about someone who talks in paragraphs. When clients don't listen or have their minds made up, insist it's their way or the highway. So I want to talk about, we'll do clients and then maybe just the team behaviors after that. So anybody have anything that has happened to them that feels hard to manage when it's happening? Or how did you, or maybe you managed it well. How did that work?
That's it. Yeah. Right.
Catherine, we had that case that
Very hard case that was.
very hard, that they didn't want to meet, and they didn't meet for a while, and we were trying, and we agreed it probably wasn't best to meet, but we wanted to follow the process, but we had to follow also, we weren't having productive meetings. And then eventually we were able to meet again. So how long did that? I mean, the collaborative process was at least a year before we even came to terms, as I recall. And then another probably, 6 months trying to paper it. I don't recall the exact amount of time, but I don't know, anything comes up for you about that, Catherine?
I would say that you and I grappled with how do we maintain the integrity of the process and keep it in collaborative. On the other hand, maybe it shouldn't have been. So it was really on the edge of really going to litigation because it was so challenging. They had a very, very long kind of tortured history, emotional history, sexual history, that made the rational brain not as well for either of them. And I think that was really hard for us. So we had to have a lot of kind of side conversations that you normally probably wouldn't have, and say, now what do we do? Like, we were constantly reassessing the process. That I think
Side conversations
like
with
Andrea and I would have to, like the lawyers, like now,
right.
or
And
team.
what I recall also is hard here is that like the clients weren't being clear. Well, not to diss your client, Catherine.
I knew you were going to bring
one of the clients.
Catherine would think there was an agreement on something and then there wasn't, or think there's not an agreement on something and there wasn't. And her client more likely, more than once, multiple times, agreed to something and then changed her mind. So we were moving forward and then we take a few steps back. And so it was very, very challenging. They were very high conflict, but I did reach out to him recently, and I just to check in how are things going. He said, yeah, it's still the same. In this case, she doesn't respond to my communications, but that agreement that we had that made it really clear on what happens when there's no response and who can make decisions, it's working. So I want to thank you.
Wow.
So
oh, good to hear.
Yeah, so the conflict was reduced because we really were really clear on process and what they could do to lower the conflict in the future. And we were able to look ahead as to
Yeah,
what they
really
would need.
detailed agreement. That's why it took 6 months with the agreement to paper it, because it was so detailed, because Andrea's client, not to diss your client, the other client also made up his own way of factoring child support. Like, he made up his own algorithm. I mean, he's a really brainy guy. And he's like, I don't want to use the CSSA. I came up with a new calculator. Really, to that extent, I was like, we have never seen this before. That's going on the list. I'm going to add, when your client creates a new child support calculator. I mean,
And when
that was
both clients are unemployed too,
oh, and they're
and
both
making no
unemployed.
money and have millions of dollars, but no money, but not making any money. It was so interesting. And you have to be flexible. I think what this case just showed us, and and going forward, you always have to be flexible and always have conversations with your colleagues about, is this still the right process? How far can we deviate from the process and still have it be collaborative? Can we go back to the more formal process? Like, it's very dynamic. It'd be lovely. And we've all had those cases that are very linear, but they're few and far between the higher conflict that the couple is.
That's right. Yeah.
Catherine, can you move your camera a little bit? We're seeing just the top of there you go. That's better. Thank you.
Sorry, I don't have self-view on, so I can't see. Oh,
Apparently.
sorry, even like seeing this one.
Yeah, just the eyeglasses up.
Andrea and Catherine, I'm curious if you could share with us, was it the family specialist who drafted like the what ifs, if you're not getting along, how you're going to resolve these conflicts, to be able to go into that level of detail? Or is it just the two of you that came up with how they were going to resolve it?
Didn't the parenting get done first?
Yeah.
They signed interim agreements along the way. I mean, I think there was also a fundamental distrust of each other. So therefore, every time we had an agreement, we're like, make an agreement, so we had multiple agreements that we had to reference in the final agreement.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't remember the parenting. It was really the money got to be very, very nuanced on how to calculate, because of his own calculator and her income coming from a trust. And then he was doing a startup. And what if his income went from 0 to $1 million in a year? Then what? So there were a lot of crazy what ifs to figure out.
But on the parenting, I think it was probably the attorneys and the family specialist, like attorneys probably hearing what the conflicts were now and saying, this is going to be a problem in the future. And it kept being a problem where, non-responsive or responding and then changing minds. So we could just see it. It was very clear, like this pattern, if it continued, what would happen. So I don't recall.
And didn't they use their own person?
That's right. We didn't have a family specialist.
They had their own therapist who worked as the family specialist, because they really trusted her and she knew their tortured dynamic, and she could get through to them. Like, they actually would listen to her, respect her opinion, whereas they didn't necessarily do that with someone from our community.
And we even brought her in to a meeting at least once or twice. She was a specialist in their, they had an open relationship that then they were both polyamorous, and then they were polyamorous, and their relationships with who they were in relationships with caused the breakdown of this relationship because they didn't keep agreements or something. So this therapist was very experienced and in that area of relationships. She specialized in open relationships, I guess. So it was like, okay, stick with her. She's doing a great job. Like, we don't want to upset the.
You can't start all over with someone else.
We're good. We're good.
Myra wants to.
I'm curious what drew them to Collaborative, how they came to Collaborative in the first place.
That's interesting.
I thought that too.
My client went to a traditional lawyer who's a good friend and, referral source. We refer cases back and forth, and she suggested Collaborative to him. She was a litigator. She could have taken this case. And so when things felt like it was, do they need to litigate? Like Catherine said, we talked to her at one point and she still thought it should not go to litigation. So he was lucky that he found a litigator that was open to Collaborative. So
why didn't she think it should go to litigation?
my client really thought she should have gone to litigation. Like, I don't think at the end of the day, because he didn't want to pay maintenance, he didn't want to pay child support. He had like certain things in the sand, like I won't do it. And then he had to like navigate around a line in the sand like that. And so and I kept telling her, listen, go get a consult if you need it, whatever you need, because at the end of the day, she did feel like she stayed in this process for a variety of reasons, but she probably shouldn't have. So I don't know if I asked her, like if I check in with her and Andrea, maybe I'll do that too, for kind of just to see what she would say, because I think getting feedback from both would be, it's worthwhile. We
We'd
should,
Right.
love to hear what she has to say.
yeah, I'll try
So,
to.
and I think that might be another topic for another day. Do we check in with clients after the fact? And I wonder, and how long has it been since you resolved the case?
A year?
Oh, more. I think it's
More
2
than-
years now.
Oh, okay.
And I think the distance, the the more positive the memory might be.
Yeah, I checked in
I
with them
found
around
that.
the 1 year mark is,
Oh, at the 1 year. Do you always do that, Andrea? Do you always check in
our
with all?
process, our policies are to check in 60 days in, maybe 6 months in, and definitely 1 year in.
Oh,
What
that's
we're
interesting.
doing. See if they need anything, if anything's changed. Well, not like, do you need legal services, but do you need
Right. How's it going?
yeah, do you need a real estate attorney, or
Oh.
do you need a will? Have you ever done that will that you meant to do?
Yeah,
Get you over
yeah.
to that trust and estates attorney, things like that. Try to be helpful and check in. And
Okay,
usually
Nora?
when I first started doing it, I was like, oh no, what am I gonna hear? But
Yeah, right.
in a much better place
It's dangerous too,
when
right?
you last talked to them.
Nora's had her hand up for a while.
Hi all, I'll be on camera soon. The single mom shuffle is a little is a lot in the morning. I just wanted to go back on a personal and a professional note. In my own collaborative divorce, we did not have a family specialist at the table. And we had somebody that we were using outside who had been with us. And so it was not maybe like traditional looking because there wasn't somebody at the table, but it's actually what worked for us. And we didn't want to start over. This person helped us tremendously to navigate the parenting plan and just in general, how we continue to show up. And on a professional note, as a therapist, I see co-parents not just going through doors, some people who aren't in collaborative, and I really see how much it works sometimes for people who aren't in collaborative and don't have that model to have their own person that they're talking to outside, helping to just give them space away from. It is very stressful sitting at the collaborative table. Let me just say that as a person who's been there, even when you have an amazing team, and it's very different to see somebody outside who isn't necessarily affiliated with it. I find it to be fruitful with my own clients, seeing people resolving things or just regular parenting things that are coming up. Sometimes after the divorce, you have to keep parenting, of course, and it is right. Parenting is the biggest job ever, right? Any of us parents do know that whether you're parenting in one home or two, it's still going to come up that somebody needs new something, or you can't figure out when to give somebody a phone, or should they have a sleepover, or whatever the case may be. And so I find it so wonderful and rewarding to do it in my own work. But I did just want to share that personal reflection that when you're sitting at the collaborative table, it feels so different. The tensions are they're still so high. It's so much better than being in a courtroom or something, but the feeling is different. I hope I'm doing a good job of explaining it, but I just wanted to offer my own personal and also just what it's like to work with co-parents in a therapeutic setting, which I love to do. But from a personal standpoint, it's tough. And sometimes, even though the person is neutral, it's just so emotionally hard. It's so taxing to be at the table. So I just wanted to offer that as I was listening.
Would it matter, Nora, if I think originally we had everybody at the table all the time. I think now we split it up a little more, and the parents work with the family specialist to do the parenting plan, and then that information comes back in. Would that matter if you were just meeting with the family specialist, just the two of you?
Yeah, because that's sort of how it was for us. I mean, I obviously I don't have the experience of having had somebody at the table. there, you know, like as a whole team. I don't know what it would have been like if the lawyers were there and the family specialist. I think if you're meeting with the family specialist outside, it feels like a safer, I'm putting quote fingers up that you can't see, while you're sorting through things. You know, it's everything is personal and it's very, very, very exposing. It is the most raw part of you, and you're very vulnerable, and you have to keep showing up at home for your kids too, even in the divorce, right? You're doing business, you're trying to make a parenting plan or whatever it is. So I do think it being separate would feel different. Like I said, that's sort of what we had. She just wasn't part of the team.
Right.
But yeah, it's very intense, very draining. I used to leave the meetings so tired. And I recommend to any people that I know that I'm working with in divorce to see if they can have childcare after they have a mediation, somebody to help them. I truly
Wow.
mean it. I say,
Wow.
you know, see if you can go do something for yourself, whether that's taking a walk or anything, because it's a lot to like run from a collaborative session or a mediation or a meeting with your lawyer to go pick up the kids at school. It radiates onto the kids, and if they can have a minute to ground themselves, it's much better for everybody. So
I mean, I think, you know, what you're pointing out is really is something that maybe, you know, maybe the lawyers more than others in the room are not always so sensitive to, is how difficult it is for the clients in the room. I was sharing with Catherine, one of my sisters who was divorced 9 years ago now, had a full collaborative team, and it was everyone in the room all of the time. And she only, within the last year, raved about the family specialist, which I don't think she felt that positive before. But now looking back, she can say, oh, this person really helped me get through this piece. So that's, you know, when we're looking at client behaviors and all the things, all the crazy things we feel like they're doing, all the nutty things they're doing, we have to remember that they're, you know, this is the worst time of their lives, and it's impossible to make rational decisions. But all right, anyone else? More story. Catherine, you're mute.
I would like to react. I have a question for Nora. As a family specialist, I think your story is interesting that you used somebody who was outside. I'm curious to know, was that person also involved with talking with the lawyers? Did that person talk to the team, or were you just really just speaking to the person by yourself and didn't have contact with the lawyers?
Good question. The person actually did not have contact with the lawyers. I would say that we came into collaborative already having worked with this person. This person was not collaboratively trained. Had the lawyers felt like it was necessary to speak, I am 150% sure they would have asked. You know, they would have said, I think we need to speak to this person. It was just a specific set of circumstances that worked. I would also, I was well supported outside with my own therapist and my own coach. So I was showing up, you know, I think pretty consciously to the table. And like I said, we had been working with this person before, so they did not have contact with the attorneys. But like I said, if there had been a hiccup, we drafted the parenting plan in the room, but we had done our homework with the therapist, and you know, we had worksheets and we were going through the holidays and stuff, so we sort of showed up prepared, and I guess maybe also really illustrating that every single divorce and every single set of circumstances is unique to the people in front of us, right? As professionals, what works for one family, this worked for us. It might not, could be a complete failure for somebody else, right? It would be a total mess. And seeing everybody for their unique circumstances. But I do think the attorneys holding the space, being able to vocalize, like if that was not working, then they would have had to have said something. I'm so thankful that it did. And listening to this all the time, I'm so thankful it's behind me. But, you know, I can say after the fact that work we did with a competent professional definitely impacts daily our ability to parent together. And sometimes it is not easy, even many years out. And of course, I know what I do professionally, so I'm showing up with an extra skill set, and it's still so hard sometimes. But she definitely did help us tremendously, and I see the effects of it still today. So
Okay, Rachel, you just posted something. Would you like to speak to that? Maybe not. Okay. Some other client behaviors. And do you want to talk any more about any of that? Tracy, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. I mean,
Great.
I read Rachel's comment, and I often feel the same way, that we have these cases, and my firm does mostly litigation, but the cases that I tend to get are more of out of court, or, really trying to reach a settlement outside. And it's often very frustrating when you have a case where the circumstances don't seem to warrant the fees that are being incurred. And, what are some ways you can streamline the process for these kinds of families when maybe, like Rachel's comment said, they're just not ready? Like, sometimes people have to go through that process.
I mean, we have the streamlined collaborative model, which is appropriate for those clients who are ready, who are able to take action on their own. And it isn't for a lot of clients that are struggling with this. Maybe one's more ready than another, or what have you, or the complexity of the emotions. It doesn't allow the streamlined, even though they say, this isn't moving forward. Why aren't we moving forward? But they're the ones holding the process back, so.
Right, so they're not ready, but they still want it over yesterday.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But even, maybe they're ready to get the divorce, but they're not necessarily ready to make a final agreement on, whatever section you're actually working on.
Right. Carmen?
Yeah, I'd love it if we could dive a little deeper on that issue of the parties come in and they're in a hurry and they express frustration, like we're not making progress, but they're the reasons why we're not making progress. And we have an agenda, everybody's agreed on the agenda, but then we get into the meeting and something happened the weekend before, right? It was Easter weekend and everything blew up. And all of a sudden, the entire session, or 3/4 of the session, is taken over by what the heck happened and how did it go so wrong? And not attributing blame, but actually understanding, like, how, Andrea, to your point of how do we avoid this in the future, right? How do we learn from this? How do we prevent this? And then, but at the same time, Tracy, like, I'm so sensitive to the fees and realizing, like, this is adding up and they're really not making the progress that by this number of sessions we should be making. And then I start feeling guilty. I mean, it's just so complex. So I would love to know how you guys address that with the clients. Like, this isn't on me, guys.
I think I had my hand raised for another reason, but if I can
Oh,
speak to
thank
that
you,
one.
Andrea.
Sure. When you see something like that, Easter weekend blew up and now the whole agenda is off. Is there agreement? Guys, I know you really want to move forward and we had a very clear agenda today. Are you in agreement that we're going to talk about this today? Because it's going to set us back in our plan. Do we have an agreement? Okay. Then they can't say, why aren't we making progress? So, like, always, if they're going off track.
Yeah, they can, Andrea.
And they're did you say?
Yeah, they can. Even though you're absolutely right. And that's
But
exactly.
we can't feel guilty is what I was going to say next. It's
Yes.
not, you like take out the guilt. This is their process. It's better than many alternatives. We are not trying to make this worse for them. They are not always their best selves. And so bring in the neutrals more, encourage those meetings with the coaches, tell them we're going to take a break until they're both ready. I don't know what it is, but don't feel guilty about billing for your time and not charging for things, because then they get spoiled and think, oh, why should I pay for this? And then when you do charge, like, why am I paying for that? So I think they have to understand they need our services. We're willing to give them to them, but there's no guilt here. We're not doing this to them. If they're not ready or they're not able, we're only here to help them if they are. you know.
And I wonder if maybe like reminding them why they chose this process as the alternate, you know, as the traditional route. You know, they want it for a reason, but I think it's easy for them to get lost in the weeds and forget that reason.
Yeah.
Andrea Hirschman.
Yeah, you know, sometimes, I mean, I don't think that, I haven't seen this done in front of everybody in the team, but privately, when you're speaking to your attorney, to your client, I will say, well, we can make it go faster. Just agree with everything that's being proposed. And then they realize,
I've said that to clients also. That's the way to do it.
it actually works.
Brilliant.
Does that work, Andrea?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, my clients understand, it works in the sense of it puts it back on them and
Mhm.
they understand that.
Yeah.
I
does it
love
work
that,
to get it
Andrea.
Does it work to help them move faster? That I can't say is true, but it does put it back on them immediately.
Makes them a little more accountable, I think.
Yes, right away.
Right.
It's like, hey, this is not me. This is you, you know.
Very good.
You know,
Absolutely
but
right.
sort of through humor and an absurd. But I mean, if they wanted to go fast, you know, just say yes.
Rachel and then Barbara.
Yeah, on that note, I think that I also, coming from the perspective of a mediator, I tend to be like really aware of the fees. And like I have a case now where we, things that we settled, months ago, my client wants to raise again. And then I realized that I think both of them are getting help from families with the fees. So they don't have the same sensitivity to it that I have, and that like maybe that's my issue, not theirs.
Yeah.
I was going to piggyback on something Andrea said. Somebody asked me recently, how long will it take us to get a parenting plan together? I said, well, I had one couple who fought about whether pickup on Sunday should be 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock, and we spent a whole hour on that. If we're going to spend time doing that, it's going to take a very long time. If you're going to agree on basic issues like what time pickup's going to be, then it's going to be a lot faster. It's up to you. And giving that little example was really clear. And that was very helpful. And I said, the timing is up to you. I'm here to talk about your issues. I'm here to help you make decisions. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. And once you agree, then we go faster. So the little concrete example is also helpful. The other thing I wanted to raise is both Catherine and Teresa, we were in a case together that is on hold. And I was a family specialist and you two were the attorneys, and we had a lot of collaboration on what to do. I think we worked well as a team, but this was a couple who kept canceling appointments, making them and canceling them, both with me and with the financial specialist. And we had one or two, not many team meetings, and they kept saying, well, we need another month. We need another month. And we've had really good discussions. Do we terminate this case? Do we see what's going on? And we ended up, I think, in a really good process together, talking about the fact that we have been helpful to them to maintain a status quo that's working. That it's a little dysfunctional, but they're both nuts. But the status quo is working for them, and this is their process. And we're leaving it open, and we made a decision not to close the case and leave it open. And we'll check in with them again in the next month or two and see how they're doing before we close the case.
And I think this group helped me. I know Andrea Vaca, you were in the group where I got some advice on a case, and this was the case. So kind of full circle. So we implemented what a lot of the people in our group had recommended, and it worked. It worked out because we have an amazing team, and we realized what worked for everyone. We all voted and we all heard each other. And I don't know if people want to move to team member behaviors because we're kind of segueing right into that, or if you want to stay with client behaviors. We have a half hour, 25 minutes left. What's your preference?
Team member.
Team member.
Oh, I should say that, and I have to go. So unfortunately, okay.
Do you have a question?
I can listen, but I got to turn off my sound and video. So, but my only question was, just how do people handle different, a team member they feel is being difficult. And I mean, I know that for me, wait 1 second, Russell. I know for me that, usually it requires me doing internal work and, what's going on for me that I'm feeling that way. And that will give me a lot of information about how to approach it. But I always want to, because a lot of times I feel like, people sort of, I'm coming 1 sec. People feel like they might be ganging up. So people are like sort of ganging up on someone, like it doesn't, or they're gossiping as opposed to let's think about this together and find the solution. But I got to listen to what others say because I got to get the door.
Thank you, Andrea.
That's good, Andrea. I like
Thank you,
that.
Andrea. Yeah, we'll talk about that.
I think that's a good one.
Yeah. I think that that's, Rachel and I have a case now, and I think that that's something that we have tried to do is keep doing some self-reflection on it. And Rachel, I want you to chime in if you're still here. I don't know. To talk about like what is going on for us, or when there was something going on between two of the members, they were able to work it out. It was really, there was some conflict within two of the members on our team. And then after some, what should I do? Maybe this, maybe that. They worked it out and now the team is okay. But then now
Yeah.
the clients are problematic. And now, but we're going to go back to the team again. And I think someone mentioned here going back to basics, like why are we in the process? And I think that that's great for the clients. But when we're when we're with the team members, then I think it's a lot harder. Teresa and I made a list of different behaviors of the team members that some of you might find, resonate with you. So you want to give some, Teresa, from our list here?
Sure. It's very specific. I had one when one attorney demands that the other attorney's client pay her counsel fees. And it's a request. It's not a conversation. Our ideal is that we're having all of these conversations all together and we're thinking about it and we're hearing from the clients and everyone's talking. And in this particular case, it's not happening that way.
It sounds like it was punitive rather than discussion.
I mean, even if it's just more like directive, it's
sounds
not
like a demand.
Yeah, exactly. He's always been the moneyed spouse. Like, where did we go? How did we get there? So
what happens in that situation, Teresa? Do you say, let's put it on the agenda and let's have a conversation about it?
Right.
I mean, you can't, it's not a unilateral demand.
Correct.
So is that what you do, or what did you do?
Yeah, we put it on the agenda. Oh, for me, we put it on the agenda to have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one was when one client is communicating with the financial specialist with her attorney's knowledge without letting the other side know. Right, Teresa, you added this one, but that does happen.
Yeah, well, because it's specific again to this case that I have, which is not an NYACP person, which I think matters. And so, so Catherine and I talked about this. We talked about it some weeks ago, and then last week, and then last night, as I'm doing this outline, I'm like, I said I had to take a break, and I then crafted an email to this other lawyer that I don't think I managed to make completely non-defensive. I tried. And so that I think I like very much what Andrea Hirschman said before about, what's going on for me, because again, we can only control ourselves and how we respond to it. I don't even want to say react to it. And in this case, it was really like, wait, we got to get back to having us all together and talking about all of these issues in a room, virtual or in person, instead of, oh yeah, something else pops into your head and you want to ask me about that. It hasn't been collaborative. And so I, again, what's going on for me with that and how can I approach that? So as some of you know, from long ago, I did an intensive study with Sharon Ellison in 2011. It's a long time ago, in powerful non-defensive communication. If you've never looked at this, you should. It's crazy, amazing stuff. And I did this intensive study, and it's still hard for me to do when I manage, even in a personal situation, to actually ask a non-defensive question It's unbelievably disarming and disarming. And as I was telling Catherine, I did in a litigation that I had with someone, and I was so frustrated by this lawyer, just, being in charge and never wanting to hear what was really going on, just putting ahead his own agenda all the time. And he's someone I even know personally, and I'm complaining to my husband. My husband's saying, just quit, just quit. I don't want to just quit. Finally, what I said to him was, what is it about me that frustrates you? And you could hear the air coming out of him. You could hear the air coming out of him. It's so unbelievably disarming. And he said, wow, you've said a mouthful. And it was just, of course, it didn't change anything permanently with that person, but for the moment, it was really, really amazing. And if you could think of questions like that, I mean, even like, in one spouse talking to another, what happened to us? It's just not, you're not blaming, you're not accusing, you're not being defensive. You're just like, here's what happened. What happened to us? Those kinds of questions are amazing and really amazing. I mean, there's one story that she tells of like middle school girls, and this girl moves to this town, and this other girl's being really mean to her, and she's got her friends being mean to her. And finally one day she said, why are you being mean to me? And the other girl went, I don't know. But just to be able to do that is, I think, can be really helpful in our work when we're having trouble, in our own teams. So that's one idea.
Myra?
So in that case, so that you gave the example of where somebody was having ex parte conversations with a financial expert, would you have expected the financial expert to sort of put it out there like, I'm getting all these contacts from, spouse A, spouse B. Do you have any concern? In other words, should they have also helped navigate this?
Yes.
Sure. And this couple, before they came to Collaborative, was in mediation, and they had the financial specialist in the mediation. So you're absolutely right. But she's not necessarily part of the team. There's no formality of her being part of this collaborative team, because we haven't even had our initial meeting, our initial, agenda setting meeting about how we're going to proceed in the case, because the person is never available or whatever. The other lawyer. So,
Oh, that's tough.
it's,
I think we that kind of ties in to one of the clients is using the financial specialist kind of unilaterally, and then being asked to pay. The other spouse is being asked to pay the fees, and that's kind of a combination of two things going on. Nancy and I have that case right now, and we're really talking about what are we going to do about it, because I know everyone's here to kind of like, what do we do about it? What are some of the solutions? And I think we have talked about how do we, we got to get it on an agenda, but first we have to have a team meeting. And I think there's a certain amount for me of like bravery that you have to bring, and courage to talk to the team openly. I think a lot of us saw the video, the honest feedback model. Ivan did an amazing job presenting that in person, and then there's a video to watch. And I think if we don't set up an honest feedback model at the beginning of our collaborative cases, then to start it when there's an issue, I think feels artificial. But if we start from the beginning and say, you know what, when we finish and we do a debrief, I would prefer, if I use I statement, I would prefer that we use the honest feedback model. And here's the video. If we can all watch it and see how we feel about it, and if we wish to implement it. And I feel like if we did that and everyone agreed to it, then instead of saying, oh, that went great, you were great. Oh, when like that kind of like throwaway debrief, as opposed to a deeper dive into, what went well for you, what didn't go well, that self-reflective piece, and being honest to say, when I did this, how did that land for you? Or just deeper, I think it could head off some of the issues that kind of fester on a team. It's and I actually wish, in a way, we as an organization kind of build that into our debrief and teach that, because I think it would end up doing better work. We would all do better work and have less of my colleague is not are acting collaboratively. Like
Right.
that's universal, everyone, we put it in quotes in this outline, and it's just like people say that all the time. And then what does that mean? But we don't really have the formal mechanism built in, not just now there's an issue. And I see Melissa's nodding. Melissa, did you see the presentation?
I think I went to it. Was
Yeah.
it? Yeah. So yeah, I haven't seen it in a while, but I'm reminded I had a case last week where it was actually me who said something that I thought was just like, I don't know, I was like thinking about the fees, and it was a full team. Nancy, you were in that meeting too. And it was a full team, and I was really concerned about the fees because my counterpart was saying to me that her client like really minimizes speaking to her because she's really concerned about the fees. And I'm thinking, God, she really needs the support of her counsel. That's the back of that's going in the, that's all I could be thinking about in the moment. And it was a full team, the first, I think the first full team meeting. And we were saying, okay, for the second meeting, we're going to be reviewing the finances or talking about support because there was going to be, maybe an interim, like a move out. It was just going to be largely a financially related meeting. And I said, which I couldn't believe, we're all there and we're scheduling the next meeting. And I said, oh, well, I don't think the family specialist needs to, what do you think? Do you think the family specialist needs to be there? I can't believe I even said that. And I was like, after I said it, I'm like, why did I even say that? And I'm getting questions. So of course the clients are then saying, well, you know what? Maybe she doesn't need to, like they bought it. It was like for a client discussion, which really was not appropriate. But all I'm thinking about was I was thinking about trying to save them money. And then I'm thinking, well, that wasn't really an appropriate thing for me to say, but it was already out there. So that, well, you know what? Maybe it's not needed because we're just going to be reviewing finances, and the family specialist says, I don't. And I know that family specialist also has said to me in the past, when they just talk about finances, I feel like I'm not really useful. I don't say anything. I'm just there and I'm costing money. And sometimes, and so that's going in the back of my head. That's the only thing I was thinking about. And I wasn't really thinking about the process and the fact that this meeting really went very well. And who am I to say, like, why did I even say that? And so then afterwards, we did have a debrief where I think we spoke about it. And like, oh my God, what did I do? And we were able to have an honest conversation. And yes, the family specialist is going to be there next week. We've decided that, but it was having that honesty and saying like, oh my God, did I really mess up? I mean, it was a Friday after, like, what was I thinking? I felt so hard. And then I actually called up pretty much all of the people that were, I don't know if I spoke to you, Nancy, but I did speak to my counterpart afterwards with a phone call, and the family specialist and my client, just to own up to it and say, I don't know, that was just not appropriate. And this is why I was doing it. And they appreciated it. My counterpart was like, God, you didn't really need to call, but I did for me, because I just felt that was not my call to make. And the fact how I even related it, of course, we wanted the clients to then take control of the process. And when they do that in different ways, I think it just upsets the integrity of the whole team. And it was an inappropriate thing to say, but I had to be vulnerable and say, this is why I said it. I couldn't say it to the clients, but I said it to the.
But also the family specialist, sometimes it can be a lot of help facilitating the meeting. And then of course, emotions can come up around money.
That's it. That's what it was about support, which was one of the most emotionally charged topics. I just don't, sometimes you say things and you're in the moment and you just have to give yourself grace, but then you have to just step back.
Of course.
And have those honest conversations. But yeah, but that was helpful. It was helpful to say, like, I screwed up. I was like the worst collaborative, participant in that meeting.
Well, thanks for sharing, Melissa, because we all make mistakes.
Yeah, right.
And you also made up for it. You recognized it, there was self-awareness, and then you dealt with it. I mean, that's a wonderful model.
It is, because in the moment, it's just really hard, especially a Zoom meeting. And the first time, it's so hard to just be present and to think about, okay, let's get to the agenda. What are the compelling, like, what are the next issues? Like, it's just navigating and then being present and looking at everyone, making sure, you have the family specialist there to kind of control and have the emotional intensity of the room, but it's just a lot to manage. I find that Zoom meetings are really, really exhausting. Really
They
exhausting.
are. And I don't know what it is. That's a whole separate topic of what the difference is. But I find the same hour or whatever, 45 minutes in person is less exhausting than on Zoom. And so if I have like a day of back-to-back Zooms, I don't know what it is, but that's, I think, maybe a topic for
Great.
another time, the pluses, the minuses. Do we need to combine them more or resort to them more? That's such a important thing, I think.
On that for a second, it seems, in my observation, that because we can Zoom, obviously we can do inter-county cases, and I think that has increased the work. A friend of mine who practices in Montclair, New Jersey, where collaborative was very big 10 years ago, everyone was doing it, feels that because of COVID and Zoom, it has really fallen off. And there's a place where, people have the mindset for it to start with. So that's really interesting. That's an interesting topic.
So Myra, one of the things, I completely agree with you with the exhaustion that happens. So I have very honest conversations with the clients about it. And sometimes the clients decide, you know what, instead of doing a 2-hour session, can we just do an hour and a half, which is totally fine. The other option that clients like to do is to take breaks. Like they just give each other the grace to just say, and we talk about it. We talk about it at the very beginning, like this is exhausting and sometimes you just need to take a break. And so how do you guys want to handle that? What do you guys want to do? And they just agreed, like, okay, we'll just take like a 5-minute break. Like we'll just check in at the 1-hour mark and see if we can and I find like that's really helped. Like even just 5 minutes, and like I'll time it. I'll set Alexa, like, let me know when 5 minutes is up, and then everybody, and it's just amazing because it's just 5 minutes, but everybody comes back refreshed and ready to.
That's great. That's great, Carmen.
Andrea, you're waiting.
So it's a little different topic. If we're still, want to keep talking about Zoom, I'll wait, but.
No, that's another whole day.
Got the note there for the next time.
So the other thing I've heard clients say after the fact when I call them, see how they're doing, is how I know you all, I really appreciate the team. I know the attorneys worked really hard. I wish there was more organization. I wish there wasn't a facilitator, an administrator of the team. And I think there are models, and back in the day, I guess when I first started doing this, sometimes the family specialist would be the facilitator, would be the manager of the team. Not so much in our area, but in other parts of the country, this was happening. And sometimes there'd be people who trained in that, and with those people were willing to do that, take on that role. And I think it is the best role for the family specialist to be the facilitator and to be the administrator of the team, but they don't always have the administrative support to be the administrator of the team. And the lawyers end up doing that and doing, so I don't know, I really think these cases would go better if there was a designated neutral facilitator or manager or administrator or something like that. The person that's in charge of making sure the meetings are getting set. Honestly, it falls to my office a lot because I do have a staff here, and it falls to us, and then our clients end up paying more because we're doing a lot more work. And I think it would be more cost effective and more balanced if it was a neutral person on the team. So I'm just wondering, from the neutrals in the room, which I think there's only 2 right now, if I'm looking correctly, how do you feel about that? And have you ever been taken on that role willingly?
I think it's a really good idea to be discussed in the beginning of a team. Teams I've been on, it's not been discussed. And it's just kind of haphazardly happened, and somebody pulls the meetings together. And I think you're really right.
I'm sorry, I unmuted because I wanted to say something. So
Go ahead.
generally, I'm either the facilitator or the family specialist. So one of us usually handles that. But I better mute myself because
I know
Pretty
you're on your
loud.
way
I
to
think
my
it should be
office right now,
consciously
Nancy.
talked about.
I know
think-
you're on, Nancy's on her way to my office for a collaborative case. Marcos is on. And I don't know if, or one of, just nod. Are you the facilitator and manager of this matter? No. Like we see my assistant or.
exactly, they've taken
seems to be
control.
Like all these emails and phone calls are always coming to him, like, what are we doing? Where's?
I
who's
know.
calling? It's crazy.
But Barbara-
I think if it's discussed at the beginning of a meeting and as the team gets together and if like the family specialist is going to be the person that's discussed and then there's a commitment to do it, from my experience, it's never been done in any of the teams I've been on. That's
Nancy,
never
can you
been
mute
talked about.
again? Nancy,
Yeah.
it's hard to hear
Oh,
Barbara.
yeah, can I just say one thing about that? Maybe at the beginning of the meeting, the whole collaborative process, depending upon who's paying the fees, maybe say if your administrator is going to be handling the coordinating of everything, then those fees should be split amongst both participants, both
Mhm.
clients.
Would the attorneys agree that we should have this conversation up front at the beginning of a case? Who's gonna be, these teams work best with an administrator. Who
Yeah.
will that be?
Mhm.
How will its fees be paid for that?
Mm.
We only have 5 minutes left, and I wanted to just bring up one other idea for trying to course correct, so to speak, these cases. I did it in one of my cases, although it wasn't that successful, but we thought it was a good idea. We actually brought in another mediator to mediate the team.
What happened?
Barbara was in that case. Barbara was on that case with him. So, but what happened is the team split, and two of the team members wanted to do one thing or agreed in one perspective, and the other team members had a different point of view and were aligned differently, and it really became a real rift in the team. And so we were like, oh, how can we fix this? And so we asked someone who was not on the team to come in and mediate, which could have been great. And the person was great, but it didn't solve the problem. And then the case did end. But that's the length we went to even try to
Yeah.
get the team back on track. And unfortunately, and that was a case like Teresa, one of the one you have now, where the lawyer wouldn't sign the participation agreement.
And you know what I was thinking when I said in this email that I sent the lawyer, like these people chose collaborative for a reason. First, they went to mediation, that didn't work out. Now they're in collaborative. They're depending on us not to act like normal lawyers, you know? I mean, let's remember why they're here. And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
They don't
But
want
Barbara, in the
litigators.
case,
They don't want litigators, yeah.
in the case that we had, you're saying we didn't decide it, but you did say from the very beginning, you send out the Zoom meeting links. And so you did, I thought we agreed, but it happened organically. I guess
It wasn't clear. I mean, yeah, I was that kind of role, but I think there should be a definite discussion on administrative tasks should be, and then it's really clear.
But I think it was, the point was made though, you need the administrative support. That's why Andrea is saying, well, if you don't have someone who could schedule, or maybe the person who's the neutral is not so adept at using Word to send out documents or setting up signatures or whatever it might be.
Right.
Because I think that's the problem. It could be the good idea, but then how do they actually do it?
How do you implement it? Right.
Implement. Yes, that's right. How do you implement the decision that the team made? I agree. I think having one person designated, but then they don't always know how to do that. So maybe they have to have a little primer on it. Here's how you do these steps, just so that, I don't know, if the person's interested in learning, maybe we have to help support that. Adam, are you?
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Adam.
Oh, he's talking about other topics we could.
Yeah.
We're going to make note, Adam. We're going to make note of it. Okay.
First of all, I want to chime in. This has been like, I'm sorry, I was like disconnected half the time, but I think it was so engaging and such a wonderful topic that the two of you put together, and all the work that you did. And I can't thank you enough, really.
Yes, thank you.
It was.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you for everyone's
Thank you.
participation.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, you're
So-
always just so helpful in coming up with ideas and being a really strong part of this group. And I really, it's great for everyone.
So I said this before Andrea Hirschman was here, and I hope you're listening, Andrea. We, in preparing for this, Catherine and I also chanced upon dangerous questions. And Andrea, it reminded me of the question that I asked in that case that we had, that was in Staten Island. Maybe she's not there. Okay,
I'm
never mind.
listening. I'm listening. I forgot
Oh,
the
okay,
question.
good, good, good.
I forgot the
What is
question.
the question?
But this is the only time I'm listening. I didn't hear anything before. So
So, the mother and 4 children were moving to Pennsylvania and the father was not. And he was okay with it. He was going to get an apartment there. And I said to him, with everyone present, what made it okay for you to let her go to Pennsylvania? And he got very emotional. And he said, because he knew that she and the children would thrive there. She had a cousin who had kids the same age. And it was, but Andrea, how did you react when I asked that question?
I don't know, but I can tell you this, I'm much smarter today, emotionally speaking, than I was 10 years ago. And that case is like almost 10 years old, no?
Yeah, it's a long time. It's a long time. But I remember you were like, oh my God, why did she ask that?
No, that case, that I met that client
Yeah.
the day that my husband died. So that was almost 8.5 years ago.
Gosh,
I
oh
know,
my
it's
gosh.
terrible.
Yikes.
I know. But anyway, so there was like 8.5 years ago. Yeah. So go ahead. So I don't know. What was my reaction? Was I upset?
You were like, first you were like afraid, I think, what was he gonna
Probably.
say?
Yeah. I know that about myself, that I can sometimes not ask questions because I'm not sure that I can handle them myself. It's
But
my
it's dangerous because you don't know what you're gonna get, Right.
And-
But in that case, it worked out really well.
I know. Well, that's why I loved working with you. I really thought, Teresa, I mean, like, I think you're a model collaborative attorney. And I loved you, really. So no, because you're not afraid to ask the dangerous questions. You work like a team. If there's a team problem, you deal with it in a way that's collaborative. Anyway, that's what I'm saying.
Thank
So,
you.
Yeah.
Teresa, I think it's a really interesting topic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Into
Okay.
dangerous questions. I really do.
There's a book called Mediating Dangerously. Like, I don't know that I would have put dangerous on that question, but when you think about it, it certainly was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to.
Yeah,
take a look
because
at
he
that.
could have said, now that you mention it, I'm changing my mind,
Yeah, I have a
Catherine,
question.
are you still there?
I have to go. So can I just ask a quick question?
Oh, all right.
Thanks, Rachel, or whoever it was that was trying to speak. Because I can't tell. Teresa, I don't know if you're still there, but I am curious. Was my reaction just privately, or did I'm just.
Oh yeah, no, you were fine. Yeah, privately. That was privately.
Okay.
But I did see a little worry on your face.
Was I telling you how scared I was or something, or who knows? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Who is trying to
Hi,
speak?
everyone.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Okay.
It's over. Oh, goodbye. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
How do
Thank
I
you
see
so
the
much.
summary? How do I get to see the summary?
All of them on wood
Oh,
versus.
I don't know who's in charge of that. Nancy, maybe? I don't know.
Is she still here? Is everyone gone?
Nancy's here.
Nancy, would
She's
you-
mute. You're mute, Nancy.
If you're increasing the cabinet.
You're still mute, Nancy.
If you're keeping the cabinet here just overhanging.
I'm just wondering if there's a way I can get it, because
And Melissa also takes notes, I think. As
Okay.
a note taker.
somebody will.
Yeah, all right, email Nancy or Melissa.
Okay, Nancy and Melissa. Okay,
All
thank
right.
you so much.
Bye,
Bye.
nice to see you, Andrea.
Okay, bye.
Well,
How do I get out of
it'd
here?
be a little tougher here, but you can notch onto this, or we'll have to figure that little detail out.
Okay. Yeah.
Hold on, let me just get out of this meeting.
I wouldn't want to add my space, but I don't want to get, this is crazy tight as it is.
Yeah.